Welcome to the Put You On Game podcast. We are your hosts, Soji and Jared. Thank you so much for joining us on whatever audio streaming platform you happen to be joining us on, whether that be Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. We are everywhere. And if you want to watch this podcast, you can catch us on YouTube. And wherever you are catching us, make sure that you like, share, subscribe, or rate us 5 stars so we can keep giving you more great content. And without further ado, let's get the show started. SOJI, my guy, what's going on with you, bro?
What's up, bro? Had another good week. Ready to do the show, man. I'm excited. I think we got some fun topics for today.
Yeah, fun for sure. We've touched on some heavy stuff, but I figured, it's a little light in the news cycle. So, why not have a little bit of a lighter show?
Right.
And I've been thinking about this, and we've mentioned our cultural identities before, but you being Nigerian and me being Guyanese, there's a lot of hilarity that goes into being the children of immigrants
Yeah.
and existing in immigrant cultures. So I wanted to ask you, what is the funniest thing, phrase, or moment about being Nigerian?
Moments are plenty, but the thing that I feel like a lot of Nigerian kids kind of reminisce about is discipline. The discipline that we got as kids, and the physical discipline, I'll say, to be a little more PC, that we got as kids. What I remember hearing a lot was, "I'll knock your head," and they would get the knuckle, not even this knuckle, they get that knuckle, like ready to just pounce. Give you like a little knock on your forehead, man. Oh, as kids, it was hilarious. And it was doing such a heavy accent. And just the way you would see parents get so like angry and flustered out. Nigerian parents are the funniest. And I'll smack you. Julia, put it down. Oh my gosh. Dude, it was growing up in that environment was definitely hilarious when I look back on it, because it's just parents just doing their best. in a different country, with rambunctious kids that don't get what's going on and how hard they work and how tired they are. So yeah, that was it. Like, just the threat of physical violence was the funniest thing about growing up as a Nigerian.
It wasn't funny at the time, but you can like look back on it and laugh. Guyanese people kind of say a similar thing, but in like a different way. Like, you get in fresh, you want to box on your top. But the funniest phrase for me, I was thinking back a couple of years ago. Me and my siblings and my parents were sitting around talking about the different phrases that Guyanese people have and how different they are to what the phrases are here in America. Mm-hmm. And, Guyanese people, they'll say stuff like, lyman, which means like, hanging out. And the first time I went to Guyana, somebody said that and I didn't understand what they meant. But by far, the funniest thing I've ever heard that Guyanese people say is, my dad, he was like, "Oh, do you know what Guyanese people call zebras?" And I'm thinking to myself, oh, it's probably just zebra. But he was like, Guyanese people legit call zebras pajama donkeys. Like that is the most ridiculous thing. I thought he was lying when he told me that they call them pajama donkeys, but it's been researched. It's true. Is the most, like, it's fitting, but it's the most ridiculous thing that I could ever think that someone would call him is a pajama donkey.
What? Oh my goodness.
I can see you just try to process the absurdity
of Are there zebras in Guyana?
I don't even know. To be perfectly, I don't think so. I don't know how. I don't have no idea, but I don't think so.
Why does that come up in conversation?
I don't know the history behind it. I just know what it's called. But that is legit what they're called. I asked around, and it is legit. They legit. It's not just one person. It's an entire group of people calling zebras pajama donkeys.
Oh, okay. So I got one more thing. Nigerians are they learn English in primary school in Nigeria. It's kind of English is actually kind of the majority spoken language in Nigeria, funny enough.
Mhm.
And the way they learn the King's English. So, and then Nigerians and West Africans just have a way of speaking English that's very, very, they pronounce every syllable. So if there's a silent letter in a word, they will pronounce it. So listen becomes listen, or, you know, honest becomes honest, you know, everything is emphasized. So that's a really funny part about being Nigerian. And, you know, being Yoruba, like the overemphasis on every word. And, you know, I remember my mom told me a funny story about her growing up and how in grade school she got roasted for saying omelet and pronouncing it omelette. and she was like, she got tortured for the whole year based on that one moment. I'm like, oh man, kids everywhere the same. They'll just find your one weakness and attack.
Exploit
omelette.
it.
Yeah, man. So yeah, man.
That's funny. Oh yeah. Let's move into basketball because we got a lot of interesting things to talk about. But I wanted to ask you a question that I saw on Twitter, posted by at Tyler I am, and he asked if, I'm paraphrasing, but if a girl treated you the way your favorite sports team did, would you leave the relationship?
Oh, that's a deep one, bro.
So the beginning of your
Yikes.
Knicks fandom to now, like if you have to think about everything that you've been through as a Knicks fan to where the team is now, what's your answer?
What I have left? Probably. I think I love myself too much to withstand a relationship like that. You know, I would have given up a while ago if that was the case. Yeah, the beginning of my Knicks fandom, you know, I became a fan at kind of a turning point in the franchise, but it was one of those turning points that wasn't really a turning point. It was just like a slight bump up, and then just the just sunk deeper and deeper into the valley. I became a fan in the Marbury era. And so when, you know, I knew I lived and grew up in New York, but I didn't really start engaging with Knicks content and basketball on that level until around the time Stephon Marbury came, and it was like, oh, you know, he's about to bring, you know, this new energy to the Garden, and it's going to be hype. And it was a lot of fun, you know, for the first year and some change. And then, you know, we just couldn't win, just couldn't make the playoffs. You know, you had, whether you got Jamal Crawford or Quentin Richardson and Eddie Curry, and then Mike D'Antoni, and, you know, before that they had Steve Francis and Ronaldo Balkman, and you know, I could go
The list
into
goes
it,
on.
but long story short, no, I don't think I could stay in that relationship. No.
That's fair.
I've definitely been used and abused and disappointed.
Yeah. I think that for me, I think it would have been an on and off again relationship for sure. Because I think there's so many good moments, definitely, as a Bulls fan over the last, I want to say 15 years, but there's been some trying times.
Yeah.
To be kind about it. So what's your highest and lowest moments respectively as a Knicks fan?
So to double back to that Marty Collins and Ronaldo Balkman era of just the franchise just middling, not really knowing what's going on. You know, the best we could hope for was Nate Robinson winning the slam dunk contest. You know, those are some dark times. But then things got darker, surprisingly. We had the little, the blip of hope in the Melo era. And then, the Melo era came to an end, and we're like, okay, we got to move on from Melo. He's not great, as good as he used to be. Let's get some pieces for him while we still can. Build around Kristaps Porzingis. And then Kristaps Porzingis busts his his ACL, is out for like a year and some change. And while he is injured and rehabbing his injury, demands a trade. I've never seen such a thing happen where somebody is out, with a season-long ending injury and is still able to demand a trade because he doesn't like where the franchise is going. A man who is not playing, can I repeat, a man who is not playing and is injured demanded a trade saying, I don't like the direction of this franchise. And just thinking about the leverage that he had to pull this off and the gall, but he did. And he was gone. And David Fizdale was the coach. And we finished the season a whopping 17-65. Out. Yeah, it was dark. Bottom feeder franchise. And this is also a season where it was like, okay, we got rid of Porzingis. Let's build towards the future with all this promise, all this glitz and glamour. We got Zion, number 1 overall pick, tied the league for the worst or second to worst record. So we got a great shot to get the number 1 overall pick. Kevin Durant is going to be a free agent. He's leaving. Kyrie Irving is going to be a free agent. Kawhi, Kemba, all these Ks are coming out into unrestricted free agency, and we got all this potential. And then we whiff on just about everybody. We whiff on Zion, we whiff on Kevin, and we whiff on Kyrie. And not only do they come to New York, but they just go to the other franchise. And we end up with the 3rd overall pick. So no Zion, no Ja Morant. And it's like, oh, okay, this is what darkness feels like. to see hope, to see light at the end of the tunnel, just a glimmer. And then for it to just dissipate into thin air, like the dusting at the end of Infinity War, just, dispassionate, you think you had it and you don't, it's okay. And so that was definitely the darkest time for me as a Knicks fan. How about you?
It's pretty easy. I feel like you know where I'm going. It's got to be the Rose injury for sure. I remember sitting on my bed, like I was watching the game on like my laptop. This is a 2010 laptop, so it's super grainy footage, so I can barely see what's happening. And we're winning a playoff game, and limited amount of time left, and he just goes down. And you can kind of see from the looks on everyone's faces and the tone from the other team and the announcers how bad it is. And then just, I think my internet connection was going in and out. So I was like losing the connection, not knowing what was happening, logging back in and just seeing, updates and seeing how bad things had gotten, and then getting the alert on my phone that, his ACL was torn and he was done for the year. And I just remember just walking around campus, just feeling like the world was over. The world had ended, because there was so much hope that went into, he was coming off of an MVP year. I think the team was coming off of winning 60 games that year. And we had lost to Miami the year prior. But I think that when you added up the scores of all the games themselves, the score was tied in that series, despite the fact that they lost 4-1. So there was some sense of hope that, with another year of experience, that we could actually compete with the best team in the league. And, it all just kind of evaporated. And it was kind of the beginning of us never being able to really get over the hump. And then after that, kind of giving up on everything and going into a full rebuild and, getting 3 straight number 7 picks, even though we were tanking. So there was a lot of darkness, but Derrick Rose kind of represented a lot of hope for the team. So that was definitely the lowest moment as a as a Bulls fan? What's your high as a Knicks fan?
So my high has to be the 2012-2013 season. We sold the farm to get Melo. And the first year, we made the playoffs. And the second year, we were kind of middling. We had Linsanity come through. Melo was, a little bit injured towards that point of the season, and we're just looking kind of decent but a little stagnant. And then, that 2012-2013 season, Jason Kidd comes in. We get Raymond Felton back. Steve Novak becomes this just 3-point monster. Iman Shumpert's back. We get J.R. Smith coming off of the lockout year where we bought his contract. And we just had this bevy of talent along with Stat and Melo and Wilson Chandler anchoring, the five. And it was like, oh, the Knicks are here. The Knicks are back. It became normal, winning became normalized in New York again. And it was like, oh, yeah, we expect a win every night now. And it was like we were thrashing teams, blowing teams out. I think we had the second or third best record in the league that year. I think, no, not the league. Well, at least in the Eastern Conference, I think it was like Miami, then Indiana, and then us, with some mix of that. But I think we had the third seed. So it was looking positive. And it was just a fun year overall, and Mike Woodson was the coach. It was interesting because he was an interim coach after, I believe, D'Antoni got fired, and the team just kept playing well under him. So we just kept him. And I was just happy. And then we get into the playoffs. I think we beat Milwaukee either in 5 games or in 4 games. Then we go on to Indiana with Frank Vogel, and Indiana just played really, really well. We lost to them in 6 games, but it was like, okay, making progress. Like, this is a good team. Melo's playing his butt off. Everybody else is competing. I think we're going to be back here next year. We're going to be in a championship conversation maybe. And then, history tells you what happens, next. We never are able to reach that kind of height, and we haven't been since. But at least that point was just a really awesome point, because I was an adult at that point and I was a struggling Knicks fan since 03-04. And so to see that to that point, it was such a high in my childhood as I was a Knicks fan.
No, I get it, bro. Cause no, like you're trying to like temper your highs and say like, yeah, it's not a championship, but like that's kind of what we have to do. We have to be realistic about our expectations for these franchises and what the highs are. Because my high is a single moment. It's one single moment. It's not a stretch. It's literally just one single moment. And the moment is the Derrick Rose buzzer beater on the Cavs. I want to say it was in game 3 in 2015. Just improbable, going right, banking it in, him running down the court into Joakim Noah's arms, and looking like he just, someone told him that he was gonna have to file a 1099 this year. Like, completely bored in the face, like he didn't just hit a game winner. But yeah, I think we went up 2-1 on the Cavs at that point, so there was a lot of optimism. Yeah. I remember that shot, and I remember feeling like that was the most excited I had ever felt watching a game of basketball. To be down 2, hit a 3, to go up 1 and go up 2-1 against the Cavs and against LeBron, who I was still hating on at that point because I didn't come to appreciate him until later on that year in the finals against the Warriors. But yeah. I think that was my high as a fan. And like you said with the Knicks, and I've said like with the Bulls, the highs don't last long because we lost the series.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings us to the current state of the franchise. And I guess just briefly, how are you feeling about the Knicks as things stand right now?
As things stand right now, I am on cloud mother loving 9. We have the longest win streak that we've had in the last 7 years. I believe we're on a 5-game winning streak. And 5-game winning streak is the longest streak we've had in 7 years. Hey, progress is progress, man. If you would have told me that we would have had a 5-game winning streak and be, in the 6th seed at the beginning of the season, I was like, sign me up. I'll take that. I'll take that right now. And so I'm hyped. I'm legitimately hyped and happy. Julius is making a case for all NBA third team this year. He is averaging 23 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists while shooting 41% from 3-point this year. Like, he is a legit stat monster, and his game is impacting winning. He's a bully in the paint. He muscles people. He organizes the offense. He pushes the pace. He's a sharpshooter. He's like everything you could want in the best player on your team. At least for right now, and considering everything else that's going on, he's that guy at the moment. RJ Barrett is having, a terrific year. He has improved in basically every statistical category this season. The only thing he's down is steals per game. He went from 1 steal to 0.8 steals a game. But every other statistical category, he's shown like market improvement. Shot selection better. He's now shooting 38% from 3, whereas he was shooting 32% last year. And he's he's slowly making the climb and slowly just getting better. And it's a perfect situation for him to develop because he doesn't have to have the pressure of the franchise on his back. That's what Julius Randle is dealing with. RJ has to just go out, try his best, find his shots where he needs to find it, and, make impactful plays while he's still learning and getting used to the game. T. Thibs is a wrecking ball of a coach. He knows how to coach defense and effort. And we just happen to have a team that's been constructed with guys who all have some kind of chip on their shoulder, who are all trying to prove something and are all really fighting hard every game. The effort that they give every game is just so infectious to watch. No game feels like we're completely out of it, especially because we're 8th in the league in 3-point percentage. So we can shoot our way back into a game, even though offensively we have a really low rating. We can make a lot of shots, and because we can keep the games within arm's reach with our defense, which is now first in points allowed, as well as in field goal percentage allowed and 3-point percentage allowed, we're able to stay in games and always kind of be in striking distance. And so it's so much better than last year. I remember just watching us be worst team when it came to defending the 3-point shot. Whenever teams would come to the Garden, they would just shoot, the lights out. And it was just a vacation game for teams. And I'm just happy overall. I'm just happy with the progress. I'm thinking towards the future. I think we're going to make the playoffs. Hopefully we can make a solid run, and then it's going to come the offseason time. We're going to have to make some tough decisions. I think they're going to try to make some trades and some free agent signings so we can be more competitive. And I'm hopeful. I'm legitimately hopeful. I think that as long as you keep the core of RJ and Julius Randle, get one more star or superstar in there, as long as we have that core with Tibbs, I'm really confident about whatever the team can do, Yeah,
That's
so
good,
I'm
bro.
hyped.
I'm really happy. I'm really genuinely happy for you. In the
I can see it.
in the 15 years or so of me being a Bulls fan, I've never envied the Knicks until now. So that kind of tells you where I'm at as far as the Bulls season this year. Okay. We are 3-9 since the Vucevic trade. 11th in the East. And Zach LaVine is out for the next 10 to 14 days on COVID protocol. So, yeah. All right. So let's move on to our next topic. I'm going to go ahead talk about
Okay, I
music
get.
for a second because I can't do it. I can't do it, man. We literally lost to the Grizzlies last night. I woke up, I saw the score, and I said whatever because I don't care. I can't bring myself to be emotionally invested in the season anymore. So that's where we're at. That's my how I feel about the current team standings, and that's all that I'll elaborate. Hope maybe on the
Respect it.
next show I'll be more emotionally ready to talk about it. But for
Yeah.
now, we're gonna move on to the next subject, something a little bit more cheery. Let's talk Brockhampton, man. I know
Yeah.
that we both got a chance to listen to their newest album. For a little bit of context, for those that don't know about Brockhampton that are listening, they are a boy band founded in San Marcos, Texas, and the album we'll be talking about, Roadrunner, New Light, New Machine, is their sixth studio album. They're called a boy band, but they dabble in lots of genres, including pop, rap, rock, and they're very experimental, very unique. So
Yeah.
I wanted to, before we dive into like a track by track breakdown and a review, I wanted to get your overall thoughts on Roadrunner, New Light, New Machine.
Oh, Brockhampton. So before I get into my overall thoughts, I appreciate that introduction to them, and I have to thank you for putting me onto Brockhampton. You tried to put me onto Brockhampton like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and I was just like, Brock, what? Whatever. Okay, cool. Brockhampton, what a name for a band. Okay, and then I listened to a song. I'm like, who am I supposed to be rooting for this song? I don't even know who I'm listening to. Like from track to track, I don't know who this is. I don't know why I should like his verse. I just couldn't get it at the time. And then slowly but surely over the last couple of years, I would hear a song from your playlist, and I would be like, oh, that's Brockhampton. Okay, I kind of dig this song. I heard Boogie a couple times. I'm like, yo, Boogie can go. It's like a nice snippet. Everybody in the band really kind of got a little bit of shine in that song, so you can get like a strong snippet of who each of them are. And then I kept listening to song after song, and I realized this is like last year. I'm like, oh man, this group is talented, and they're very fun to listen to. I'm really digging them. And so I say all that to say that this project really exemplified who they are as a group, and it really exemplified all the different dimensions that they're able to use to make a compelling project from start to finish. Overall, I really thought it was a good project. And what I appreciate most about what they're able to do is that they're able to really maximize the abilities of each member of the group. Like I can't remember how many individuals are a part of the collective, but they all have something dope to contribute to this project. I think what the project is 12 tracks long. So whether it's Bareface singing on Dear Lord, whether it's, Merlin, being a wild card, Matt Champion, delivering strong verses, Don delivering really strong verses throughout the whole project, Kevin the Abstract, being very strong lyrically, Joba with his rhymes or with his singing and vocals, the production team just always, every song is something new, something slightly different, and just playing around with so many different themes. They're so adept at just capturing multiple styles and sounds, but it's still feeling like a coherent project that has some kind of theme to it,
Right.
and just very emotional, very grounded, very thought-provoking, and also a lot of fun. Like I had a lot of fun listening to the album, bumping through it a couple times, or the amount of times that I've listened to it. So yeah, it was a great project in my eyes overall.
I definitely agree, bro. I think that with Brockhampton, listening to Saturation 2, I think Saturation 2 was the first project that I listened to by them. It was like nothing I'd ever really heard before. Whether you're talking about Kevin Abstract and his verses, and him being one of the first openly gay rappers that I had ever heard on a track, and how bold and almost brazen he was about his sexuality. I thought that was
Yeah.
really refreshing. And like you said, they have so many different members, but they're all so different. So they're able to combine their differences and make a cohesive sound with, like you said, which is a weird phenomenon, but I think they're really diverse. They're daring. They're really fearless in terms of their willingness to try anything sonically. Um, they're really good at making experimental music more accessible and more catchy for listeners in terms of their soundscapes.
Yeah.
And like, you can not like a Brockhampton album, but I definitely don't think that you'll be bored.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I get from them as a group. But as far as Roadrunner, New Light, New Machine, I think this might be my favorite release by them so far. It's early, but I think
Yeah.
it's in contention for my favorite release by them. It's like you alluded to earlier, it's a more mature and realized version of their sound. We
Yeah.
saw it with their last release, Ginger, in terms of their subject matter and their sound maturing, but I think that's more of a continuation of this. Um, yeah, even just with their features on the album as well, like they're expanding into getting more bigger name features and bringing people into that Brockhampton sound. Like, even if you want to talk about, Buzzcut, opening with that loud siren filled beat, it's a more like intricate, polished sound than, say, a Boogie, like we talked about earlier, which is a little bit more simple. And then you got a really great verse from Danny Brown, who's like one of my favorite feature rappers now.
Yeah.
And you have that really interesting transition towards the end, and it just completely changes into a new song that also fits the first half. And it's kind of
Yeah.
it's a really good, like, if you were to tell someone to listen to a Brockhampton song to get an idea of what they were as a group, that's probably one of the songs that you can point to in terms of the beat switch. And it's kind of a really good representation of what their sound is overall. So what are some
Yeah.
standout tracks for you?
Oh, I mean, legitimately, bro, like I would say about 5 to 7 straight up bangers that touched on different genres that I enjoyed about it. Like this song, the album goes from feeling like a Wu-Tang project in some songs to feeling like a NSYNC project in others. And they do
That's
it
the
in
Brockhampton experience.
it really is. It's like, oh man, like, you get on a song like Windows or like Buzzcut, and you're feeling like, man, this is dope. Like these verses are banging. You hear "Go Merlin, Go Merlin, Go Merlin." Like that was my jam. His verse on that song was fire. And you see his kind of growth as an artist and him really coming into his own and just being a wild card, but being so entertaining. Kevin's verse on Buzzcut was so good. And then the chorus and on that song was fire. JPEG Mafia coming in on Chain On, and that song was good. And then Don't Shoot Up the Club, like that. Oh my goodness, I enjoyed that song so much. And me being an ASAP fan, I also really enjoyed Count on Me. Like his verse on that was smooth and was just dope. Then you switch it to a song like what was that other song I liked? It was that song, I think, where they spoke about, I think it sounded like an NSYNC song. Let me see if I can find it real quick. But that, or Dear Lord, where it actually reminds me of Boyz II Men with the way that Bareface kind of led that project using the auto-tune in a very beautiful and soulful way, and then having other members of the group kind of do the background vocals as they pray. I was wondering who they were praying for, and if it was maybe an ode to Amir or someone else that, you know, is really close to them that's struggling with something.
Might have been Joba. That's kind of I think it probably goes across for anyone. But you know, as far as what Joba was talking about on this album, I think for me that's kind of where it hit the most as far as what he was going through.
Okay, yeah. Oh, okay. What's the occasion? That's the song that, you know, they sounded straight up like in sync. I'm like, okay, like this is awesome. You know, very like fun and upbeat and you know, just it was fun and upbeat. But they were talking about about what was it about being a drug dealer, right? I think that was the song.
Yeah.
Like I forgot the bar, and yeah, so just it just showed their range, and it just showed how many different influences they borrow from. That is able to make them into such a unique group and such a unique experience from track to track.
Yeah, yeah, it's such a good album. I think I'll say what I didn't like first, and it's a very small gripe, but I guess I didn't really care for I'll Take You On and Old News, like those tracks in the middle back to back. Like I could probably do without those.
Okay.
But outside of that, I think every song is it's a banger. There were so many different moments on this album that I really enjoyed. Whether you're talking about Don't Shoot Up the Party, it almost sounds like a anti-mass shooter
Yeah.
anthem, which is
Yeah.
crazy. And then you've got Kevin Abstract talking about his own self-hatred as
Yeah.
well as racism. And it was just a really interesting juxtaposition between the 2 points in terms of, you know, what we deal with as a country in terms of racism and violence. It was kind of this picture of all of the ills of America in a way, not all of them, but some of the ills of America. I thought that was a really interesting way to look at it. And of course, you talked about Dear Lord. That's one of my favorite. Like Bareface, anytime he has a track by himself, it's always one of my favorite songs because I feel like
Yeah.
he's just super talented. And it was really, I love the way that he layered all of his vocals. And there was so many different standout lines and bars. On Windows, you have Don McLennan kind of musing about his life, and he said, and incarceration, and he also says about himself. It kind of struck me. He said, "My pen could be a fortune teller or an ATM." Like just about his voice and about music and how his his thoughts can take him in so many different directions, and whether or not what he's writing about could possibly be like, I guess I took it as more of a self-fulfilling prophecy, or whether he's writing and his talents could just be about money. I thought that that was really intriguing. I think that Kevin Abstract had so many different interesting moments. I think on the light, he was saying he's still struggling about telling his mom who he's in love with, even though that their relationship is by and large okay. He says they're in a good place. And we talked about Saturation 2 and his acknowledgement of his sexuality on that album and being so open about it. But a line that really struck me from the light was where he said he told the world who he was before he got to know Ian, which is his real name. So it's like he's telling the world about who he is before he even himself realizes who he is. So that was a really intriguing moment. But there were so many heavy moments, and I think the heaviest moment for me was the light part 1 and 2,
Yes. I
especially
was
when
just
you
about to
talk
say that.
about Joba and him dealing with his father's suicide. And he starts on the light where he's describing it in vivid detail, and it's like a really uncomfortable listen, the way he literally paints a picture of what the scene of his father's suicide looked like. And that like really struck a chord with me in terms of what he was going through on this whole album. And he kind of, he's a member that you see a lot of times a little bit more in the background, especially early on in their career, but he's like inched more and more up to the forefront, and he's really front and center on this album. And then you have him on the light part 2, and it's less of him reacting to his father's passing and then more of him trying to reconcile with his feelings. And one line that really, really struck me and really, really got to me is that he said in regards to his father's suicide. He said, when that hammer pulled back, did you think of me? And that
Mm,
really like hit me hard, because it's like, how many, I've never personally experienced having someone close to me commit suicide, but how many people that has happened to, how many times have they wondered, was that person thinking about me in that moment? So to have that be his father as well, like, it was just really, really impactful to me. So like, I think that they're maturing in terms of their sound, but they are really, really maturing in terms of their openness in their subject matter and how they express it. So the
yeah.
light, part 1 and 2 really, really stood out to me as an evolution in what Brockhampton is. But it was a really, really touching moment on the album for me.
Yeah, and I totally agree, because it's that kind of growth that I love to see in musicians. And the fact that they're able to put that on wax and talk about it in that way means that they're also growing as human beings, and they're growing in terms of what they're comfortable with and acknowledging the traumas of their past. And I think that's a path that we all kind of embark on. And so when you can encapsulate that in your music, you're better able to empathize with the artist, and it connects to your soul a lot more. So hearing all of that, and hearing all that openness, hearing all that acknowledgement of your trauma, is really refreshing. But to put that in the midst of something that's you know, entertaining, and something that bumps in the whip, and something that engages you, it's really, it really cuts to, it really shows the layers and the depth that they're able to um show in their artistry. And it just has me wanting more, you know. It has me wanting more. It has me wanting to see them just continue to create, and continue to just to make more and more stuff. And I really have to like give another shout out to their production team, man. Those
Yeah,
guys
I want to touch on
are,
that too. That was dope.
they are able to craft such unique um sounds to, again, showcase the skills of each member. And I love how the group is, from a song structure perspective, how they creatively use things like choruses and bridges and interludes, in order to feature different members of a song. So even if, you know, Don might be getting, or Kevin might be getting a lion's share of a song, you know, you might use a Matt in the chorus, you might use a Marilyn in the hook, you might use a Marilyn in the interlude, you might use Job or Bareface or someone else. And they're able to weave them into the song in such creative ways, so you still feel like everybody's fingerprint is somehow on that project. But yeah, tell me more about what you think of the production.
Yeah, it was super, super varied. I think that we talked about it earlier, but their ability to jump from genre to genre sometimes and still have it sound like Brockhampton is is really unique to me. I think that uh you have What's the Occasion? It starts out, a song that starts out kind of one way, but it almost delves into like a pop rock sound towards the
Yeah.
end, once you have that core, the choir chorus at the end. And they really leaned in a lot with guitar on this album as well. uh Even if you look at something like When I Ball, like the
Yeah.
instrumental, it was so pleasant. It was such a pleasant, unique instrumental. It's actually produced by Chad Hugo of the Neptunes and Rex Orange County, but it almost reminded me of like an old Elton John song
Okay.
for some reason. Like the, I guess the like orchestral sounds of it, like it, like if it, without the, if you take the drums out, it almost sounds like an Elton John song to me. And it was really almost a nostalgic sound. So,
Mm,
and then to pair that with Dom and Matt reflecting kind of on their past and their future goals, it was a very fitting like marriage of sounds. But yeah, like you said, shout out to their production team. They have a really, really unique, distinct sound going, and I'm really, really looking forward to what their next project is going to sound like. I guess we'll just close it out, and let's go with, what are your 3 favorite tracks?
So 3 favorite tracks. Ooh, I think I have to say, Dear Lord. Dear Lord was really special. That cut deep on me. Um, I then have to say, for right now, I'll say Dear Lord, Buzz Cut. Buzz Cut was so much fun. And Don't Shoot Up the Club. Those were just like, I every time I listen to this album, I have to play those songs and I have to hear that sound. I just
Yeah.
need to, you know. Yeah, that's really what I enjoyed in this album.
Yeah, mine
How
is
about you?
similar. I'll definitely go Buzz Cut for sure. Um, and I think Dear Lord is one of my favorites as well. And then my third favorite is gonna be The Light Part 2.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
great project from America's favorite boy band, and we're looking forward to more from you guys. I think I heard that this is going to be their second to last album as a group for a while, or at least for the foreseeable future. I think they have one coming out later this year, but I'm looking forward to their next album and to what they're going to do individually. So that'll be fun.
Yeah. It's gonna be a blast. I can't wait to, man. Yeah, and
Guaranteed to be interesting, whatever it is.
and the album, it also brings up allusions of cartoons with the name Roadrunner. And speaking of cartoons, the last topic that we had was going to be based around a top 10 list that you gave me the idea for. So we're going to talk about our top 10 animes and cartoons, right?
Yeah, that was an elite transition, by the way. That was chef's kiss. Elite level transition.
I think
You're a real
Fantano
podcaster out here, bro.
I think
You're out here in
Fantano
these
would be
streets.
proud of that transition, bro. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
let's start with our bottom 5 out of the 10. So you want me? Should I go first?
yeah. I can't wait. I'm really curious to hear what you got.
Okay. So at 10, I have Pokemon. We're gonna go with the original,
Okay.
probably first couple seasons because it's still going. I haven't watched it in like a decade, but we're gonna go with the first couple seasons.
Yeah.
9, I have the original Teen Titans.
Okay.
8, I have Static Shock.
Mm.
7, I have Hey Arnold.
Okay.
5, I have
No, 6.
oh no 6. Sorry, 6, I have Dragon Ball Z. Yeah, that'll round out my bottom 5. And by the way, this is just a completely nostalgia based personal list. This is not what I think the 10 best anime slash cartoon projects or entities are.
Okay.
Disclaimer.
And so this is, you said it's based on nostalgia, and is it in any way, is your top, at least the first 5, how do you feel like they kind of shaped you?
I think Pokemon doesn't really have a large emotional impact on me for the most part, but it was just such a huge part of my life for, basically its inception. Whether you want to talk about the actual anime or the games, it's a huge part of my life, but it's just the quality isn't necessarily there. I don't think it's the best show to be perfectly honest, but so that's why I just had it number 10 just to have it. Teen Titans was kind of the same. I like vividly remember it coming out in like 4th and 5th grade and just how enamored I was by it. Static Shock is probably the largest impact of the bottom 5. I think that it had a lot of really interesting and impactful themes, and it was good for representation because it was one of the first, if not the first, lead Black superhero that I had seen on
Yeah.
television.
Yeah.
And they weren't shy about his race or his culture or ethnicity, and they really leaned into that. So that was that. And Hey Arnold also had some good lessons on it as well. and just a really quality show from beginning to end. And Dragon Ball Z is, I mean, it's self-explanatory. It's Dragon Ball Z. There's not a lot of emotional impact. But I mean, I guess believe in yourself is probably the biggest message you can get from Dragon Ball Z. And anything is possible if you believe in yourself. But yeah, that's the reasoning behind my bottom 5. What about yours, man?
So I got a Family Guy coming in at number 10. Death Note, the anime, coming in at number 9. Pokemon made my number 8. I got SpongeBob SquarePants at number 7.
Okay.
And number 6 is Attack on Titan.
Okay. Okay.
You know, speaking of nostalgia, Family Guy, I love it. I just love the jokes. I love what it means for the culture, and just, you know, how we as millennials kind of see comedy. Just nothing was sacred in Family Guy, and that's kind of how how a lot of millennials see the world nowadays. Nothing is sacred. Anybody can get it. Any subject matter can get it. Death Note was such a great mystery thriller, psychological thriller. And as an anime, I just had a lot of fun with it. Pokemon, same thing, just a huge part of my childhood. Who didn't have the cards? Who doesn't know who Pikachu is? Playing all the video games, watching the episodes, memorizing the Pokemon rap song. All of that was just, it was so vivid, Pokemon. And I just love that show a lot. Then SpongeBob, another show, not as edgy as a Family Guy, but still so strong for the culture. So much media, so many jokes, so many references have been made to SpongeBob and stuff that I enjoy and find hilarious.
Memes galore in SpongeBob. For sure.
Yes, memes galore. CAMPFIRESONG song. That's my stuff, right? And then finally at number 6, Attack on Titan. I started watching this show in college, and I was completely just enamored by it. And it's the first manga that I actually decided to read because I couldn't get enough of the show. And that show, it's an amazing story that they're telling. And I enjoy it thoroughly. So that rounds up that. What about your top 5? Let's hear your top 5 now.
Okay. All right. So coming in at number 5, I have Star Wars, The Clone Wars.
Okay.
At number 4, I have Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
Number 3, I have Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. At number 2, I have The Boondocks. And at number 1, no surprise to anyone that knows me, I have Avatar: The Last Airbender. Unquestionably the best cartoon, in my opinion, ever. I've seen it no less all the way through than like 8 times.
How many episodes is that for the people?
That's got to be at least like 60 episodes.
Ooh.
like 20 minutes a piece. Yeah. Did you want me? I guess I should just expand on my list. Star Wars: The Clone Wars is a very recent watch, but I've gotten a lot more into Star Wars over like the last year or so, and it was just a really good way for me to dive deeper into the lore of Star Wars, and I really enjoyed kind of them filling the gaps in between the prequels.
Right.
And it really made a lot of the other entities in the Star Wars franchise make more sense, especially stuff like the Mandalorian. So it was a really, really good watch. Cowboy Bebop, I really love the aesthetic of it. I love the mix of jazz and space. I think it has a really, really good story. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, I think, also has a really, really, really great story and a really, really great concept. I really enjoyed the show front to back. The Boondocks is almost self-explanatory. It's one of the best satires, I think, out there. And
Right.
it's such a good satire that sometimes people don't even realize it's satire and they just watch it at face value because it's also entertaining at face value if they don't realize that
Yeah.
they're actually like making fun of it. But it's a really, really good show. I'm glad it's coming back. Uh, and Avatar, I think Avatar is the show that makes me like the most nostalgic and like the most emotional because I have like the greatest emotional connection to the characters. I think it's one of the best hero's journey stories out there in animation or in live action. I think it's just a really good story from beginning to end. The mixes of martial arts and Eastern philosophy, and it's a really, really well formed, interesting world that exists. So yeah, it's a show I can never get tired of. I'll probably watch it like 6 months again for, just watch it all the way through again for whatever reason. But what's your top five?
All right. So my top five, coming in at number 5, we got the Boondocks.
Okay.
Number 4, we got South Park.
Okay.
Number 3, we got Rick and Morty.
Okay.
Yeah. Number 2, we got The Simpsons.
Okay.
And number 1, Dragon Ball Z. That's
that's
that's me.
Let's you go ahead and expand on this list, sir, before I dive into your choices.
So the Boondocks I put at number 5 because I picked it up and I was so excited to see representation from a Black satirical standpoint and just all the things of the culture that the Boondocks represented and the way they talked about Black issues. And it's a show that I enjoyed as a kid, but as an adult, it has only gotten better. The satire makes so much more sense now. I remember there was this one episode with where they were talking about the Iraq War, and it was featuring Samuel L. Jackson and the late Charlie Murphy as two white dudes playing two white dudes. And Samuel L. Jackson yelling like he normally does, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. Just because you have just because you have evidence that something doesn't exist doesn't mean you don't have evidence that something does exist. And how that was an allusion to the Iraq War and the justification for getting into it. It was just brilliant. And
oh, wow.
Aaron McGruber
I never thought
was
about
just
that.
it was so like, and how he was just saying and talking about stuff at that point in time. And so me as an adult understanding it, I'm like, wow, this show had a lot of depth. And then South Park, they've been doing satire with, for the longest, and they touch on everything, man. And just me and my 3rd, 4th, 5th grade friends just talking about South Park and just like reminiscing on the different things that all the controversial stuff that they talk about. Was so they are something else. Those creators are something else. And then Rick and Morty, number 3 for me. It would be higher, but because I got into it as an adult, it's not. And my top 2 are based on nostalgia, but I love me some Rick and Morty, man. Their intergalactic adventures and escapades that center around a suburban family is just hilarious to me. And the way that they legitimately tackle both ends of that, where you have them going on these interstellar adventures, moving through dimensions, space and time, talking about cosmic philosophy as well as cosmic horror themes that I've seen somebody else break down on the channel Wisecrack. But then going into, the struggles of what it's like to be a father that is kind of stupid, for lack of a better word, and whose wife is clearly more educated and ambitious than him, and a son in Rick, and a rebellious teenager in their daughter Summer, and just that whole juxtaposition is hilarious to me, and the way they blend the two is always a good time. The Simpsons is one of the first cartoons that I really started enjoying. And it's, again, one of those things that has only gotten better with time. You know, I watch a bunch of reruns. There's hundreds upon hundreds of episodes. I haven't seen them all, but at least my early days watching Fox 5 all the time, 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, I was there watching The Simpsons. It was reliable, and it was a lot of fun. And yeah, again, as an adult, a lot of the jokes hit so much better now, and it's so much more interesting to watch. Especially, I remember watching an episode about when Homer went to New York and got a ticket there, and just, you know, how annoying it is to be in New York and be in Times Square. And this is New York during a period of time where, like, it was still not cool to be in New York, but it was always good at talking about the culture and just talking about current events and doing it in a funny, interesting way. And then finally, Dragon Ball Z. This is pure nostalgia. From the opening song, with the heavy metal intro, it just captured my imagination as a 5-year-old kid. And I was so hyped. I remember being so excited every single day to come back home to watch another episode of Dragon Ball Z on Toonami at 6:30 p.m. Like, I remember all the times and all the lineups. I was so hyped, man. That was my childhood. And just also understanding the characters. You know, you have your Gokus, who is kind of he's always in it for the challenge, you know, and then you have characters like Vegeta that are so prideful and just learning how to cope and be in a world where someone is legitimately going to be better than you. And it doesn't matter what your background or your heritage is, you have to earn everything. And, you know, then identifying with a Gohan, you know, me being around the same age as Gohan as he's growing up through the series. So you kind of see the events from his eyes and his perspective, and me really identifying with him. You know, his father dying all these times and someone else raising him, you know, me and my father passing away at a young age. I just kind of identified with characters like that. And I can see that now as an adult, but that's not something I could see as a kid. So this rounds out my top 10, and it's in my heart as pretty much my favorite show of all time because of what it meant to me and the excitement that I had, and just the way it just captured my imagination.
Yeah, I feel that, bro. It has a lot of nostalgic value for me as well. It's just, I guess it's just rewatchability for me. Like it can be a tough rewatch because, like, sometimes the fights will take like 20 episodes, and that's not an exaggeration. Like, you know, they'll literally spend a whole episode just talking, you know, and then it'll be like, next time on Dragon Ball Z, and then it's just like a continuation of like the same thing. But I get it. I have so much love for Dragon Ball Z just for what it meant, because little me didn't care. Like, I was glued to the TV, whether they were just like talking or, you know, posturing about what they were gonna do and what everything meant. It's just an iconic show. You know, you gotta love the classic characters, the classic reactions. Like, I wonder how much time did they spend in an episode, like, where a character is surprised by something and they do that same thing, like where they're like, they stare off and they're just like, like that reaction must take up at least like 30% of Dragon Ball Z time.
But Vegeta getting punched in the gut.
It can't be. His power. But yeah, it's cool. I'm glad we were able to share these lists with each other. I think that, you know, some people will dismiss cartoons because of the childlessness of it, but there's a lot of value in animation, and there's certain things that you can do in animation that you can't do in live action. So I have a lot of love for these shows for the impact that they had and the stories that they were able to tell.
Yeah, man. Same. I appreciate this prompt because I had a lot of fun just remembering kind of who I am and how all these shows really impacted my childhood and really brought out just different thoughts and emotions and feelings. and it was a blast, man. It was a blast making this list and running down memory lane.
Yeah, for sure. Like we'll have to do something related to this in the future for sure. Have to figure out
Definitely.
another way to bring this up just so we can talk about more cartoons.
Basically, yeah. We'll figure out something.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that does it, for another episode of the Put You On Game podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Hit us in our email and tell us what your favorite cartoons and animes are, and hit
Yeah.
us with your questions. But again, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your listening, your support, and see you next week.
Definitely. All right, everybody. Peace and love. Have a good one.